Good morning, friends. Once again, I welcome you all to this e-learning platform of KTHM College. So, in today's session, we are going to have the summary and analysis of chapter 10 of Animal Farm by George Orwell. This is the last chapter of novel Animal Farm. First, we'll have a look at the summary of chapter 10. Years pass, and Animal Farm undergoes its final changes. Muriel, Bluebell, Jessie, and Pincher are all dead, and Jones dies in a in his home. Clover is now 14 years old, 2 years past the retiring age, but has not retired. No animal ever has. There are more animals on the farm, and the farm's boundaries have increased thanks to the purchase of two of Pilkington's fields. The second windmill has been completed and is used for milling corn. All the animals continue their lives of hard work and little food, except, of course, for the pigs. One evening, Clover sees a shocking sight. Squealer walking on his hind legs, other pigs follow, walking the same way, and Napoleon also emerges from the farmhouse carrying a whip in his trotter. The sheep begin to bleat, a new version of their previous slogan, 4 legs good, 2 legs better. Clover also notices that the wall on which the 7 commandments were written has been repainted. Now the wall simply reads, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Eventually, all the pigs begin carrying whips and wearing Jones' clothes. In the novel's final scene, a deputation of neighboring farmers are given a tour of the farm, after which they meet in the dining room of the farmhouse with Napoleon and the other pigs. Mr. Pilkington makes a toast to Animal Farm and its efficiency. Napoleon then offers a speech in which he continues his new policies. The word comrade will be suppressed. There will be no more Sunday meetings. The skull of Old Major has been buried, and the farm flag will be changed to a simple field of green. His greatest change in policy, however, is his announcement that Animal Farm will again be called Manor Farm. Soon after Napoleon's speech, the men and pigs begin playing cards, but a loud quarrel erupts when both Napoleon and Pilkington each try to play the ace of spades. As Clover and the other animals watch the arguments through the dining room window, they are unable to discriminate between the humans and the pigs. This is the summary of chapter 10. Now we'll have the analysis of chapter 10. Analysis. This final chapter depicts the complete transformation, not only in name, from Animal Farm to Manor Farm. There will never be a retirement home for old animals, as evidenced by Clover, and the pigs come to resemble their human oppressors to the degree that it was impossible to say which was which. The completion of the second windmill marks not the rebirth of Snowball's utopian vision, but a further linking of the animals and humans. Used not for dynamo, but instead for milling corn and thus making money, the windmill's symbolic meaning has, like everything else, been reversed and corrupted. Animal Farm is now inexorably tied to its human neighbors in terms of commerce and atmosphere. Orwell has years pass between chapter 9 and 10 to trace the ways in which the animals lack of any sense of history has rendered them incapable of judging their present situation. The animals cannot complain about their awful lives, since they had nothing to go upon except Squealer's list of figures, which invariably demonstrated that everything was getting better and better. As Winston Smith, the protagonist of Orwell's 1984, understands, the government could thrust its hand into the past and say of this or that event it never happened. This same phenomena occurs now on Animal Farm, where the animals cannot recall their ever having been a way of life different from their present one, and therefore no way of life to which they can compare their own. Although Beasts of England is hummed in secret by some would be rebels, no one dared to sing it aloud. The pigs have won their ideological battle as the party wins its war with Winston's mind at the end of 1984. Only Benjamin, a means by which Orwell again voices his own opinion of the matter, is able to conclude that hunger, hardship, and disappointment are the unalterable law of life. While Clover is shocked at the sight of Squealer walking on two legs, the reader is not, since this moment is the logical result of all the pigs' previous machinations. Napoleon's carrying a whip in his trotter, formerly a symbol of human torture, and dressing in Jones' clothes only cements in readers' minds that they have long suspected. The ship's new slogan, as before, destroys any chance for thought or debate on the animal's part, and the new commandment painted on the wall perfectly and ironically expresses Napoleon's philosophy. Of course, the phrase more equal is paradoxical, but this illustrates the paradoxical notion of animals oppressing their own kind in the name of liberty and unity. When the deputation of neighboring humans arrives, the animals are not sure whom they should fear, the pigs or the men. Orwell implies here that there is no real difference, as it does with the pigs buying a wireless, a telephone, and newspapers, and with Napoleon smoking a pipe, despite old Major's admonition to avoid all habits of men. Pilkington's address to Napoleon is nivelling in tone and reveals his desire to remain on good terms with the intimidating leader of Animal Farm. Excusing all cruelty and apologizing for being nervous about the effects of the rebellion, Pilkington offers a stream of empty words said only to keep the wheels of commerce well greased. Note that he praises Napoleon for making the animals do more work for less food. Flattery from such a man can only suggest that the object of such praise is as corrupt as he who flatters. His final witticism, if you have your lower animals to contend with, we have our lower classes, again stresses the political interchangeability between the pigs and the men. The changes of which Napoleon speaks in his address are the final ones needed to make the farm a complete dictatorship. The abolition of the word comrade will create less unity among the animals. The burial of old Major's skull will figuratively bury any notions of the dead pig's ideals, and the removal of the horn and hoof from the flag will ensure that the animals over which it waves never consider the rewards of struggle and rebellion. Finally, the changing of the farm's name back to Manor Farm implies that everything has come full circle, while also implying that the farm is not in any sense the animals. Instead, it is property of those, as Hamlet quips in Shakespeare's plays, to the manor born the pigs. The novel's final scene, in which Napoleon and Pilkington argue about two eggs of spades, aces of spades, brilliantly represents the entire book. After years of oppression, struggle, rebellion, and reform, the pigs have become as corrupt and cruel as their masters. Smoking, drinking, whipping, killing, and even cheating are now qualities shared by both animal and man. Despite Pilkington's professed admiration for Napoleon and vice versa, neither trust the other because neither can. Each is motivated purely by self interest and not the altruistic yet ineffectual principles once expounded by the old major. This is the analysis of chapter 10 of Animal Farm by George Orwell. In the next lecture, we are going to have the character analysis of all the characters in the Animal Farm by George Orwell. Thank you.